You think buffets scream freedom, all you can eat, endless choices, no questions asked. But for seniors, that convenience can become a crime scene. Deadly bacteria like Listeria, Salmonella, and Clostridium perfringens lurk on serving spoons, hidden in lukewarm chafers, and ride on shared plates. Buffets aren't feasts, they're stealth threats. Stay tuned before your next plate becomes your last. We'll start with a story that shows how one normal night out can end in the ER. Old Country Buffet in Maple Grove, Minnesota looked like any other weekend dinner spot back in January of 2014. Families piling plates high, kids running to the dessert bar, seniors grabbing a warm roll from the basket. But that harmless-looking roll? It turned into the smoking gun in one of the nastiest salmonella outbreaks the state had seen in years. Doctors started connecting the dots when diners showed up sick. 23 cases at first, 11 confirmed in the lab, and one unlucky soul hospitalized for nearly 2 weeks. By the end, health officials counted 36 likely victims, almost all of them linked to a single Saturday night, January 25th. And the culprit wasn't some suspicious meat, it was the breadbasket. Here's the jaw-dropper. Investigators discovered that the same brush used to slather imitation butter on raw chicken had also been dunked into that same tub of butter to glaze dinner rolls. So when you picked up what looked like a safe golden roll, you were really getting a side of bacteria. The butter was kept warm in a proofing oven, around 140 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Sounds hot, right? Not hot enough to kill salmonella, just warm enough to keep it comfortable. When the state health lab ran DNA fingerprints on the bacteria, 3 cases matched perfectly. Every one of those people had eaten dinner at that Old Country Buffet on the very same night. Investigators swooped in and found all kinds of problems. Sanitizer buckets that didn't actually contain sanitizer, sloppy wash and rinse routines, and meat temperatures that weren't being checked correctly. It was like a safety checklist where every box was left blank. Statistically, the rolls were a bullseye. 15 of 21 sick people had eaten them, compared to only 9 of 38 who didn't get sick. That gave the rolls 4 times the odds of being the vehicle for infection. Numbers don't usually tell a story this clearly, but in this case, they did. Now, for most healthy adults, salmonella means a rough few days of fever, diarrhea, and cramps. Miserable but survivable. For seniors, it can be much worse. We're talking dehydration, blood infections, even complications like reactive arthritis. The Centers for Disease Control says older adults are far more likely to end up in the hospital from this stuff. And remember, this all started with a dinner roll. The irony is almost comical if it weren't so dangerous. You could skip the fried chicken, avoid the questionable pasta, and still end up sick because someone behind the line used one brush for everything. After the outbreak, the restaurant tossed every single brush and brought in color-coded replacements. Red for raw, green for ready to eat. A fix that feels obvious only after dozens of people end up doubled over. And here's the detail that sticks with me. Inspectors found that so-called sanitizer bucket sitting there like a stage prop. No actual sanitizer inside. Just dirty water in a red bucket. Safety theater at its finest. So the next time you're at a buffet and you see those lukewarm trays or tired-looking bread, remember Maple Grove. It wasn't the chicken that got them, it was the roll. And if you thought cross-contamination was the biggest threat, the next outbreak shows the real danger was dripping under your feet the whole time. Golden Corral, Kennesaw, Georgia, summer of 2003. What looked like an ordinary family buffet turned into a slow-burn salmonella mystery that dragged on for months, and the trail didn't lead to the chicken, the salad bar, or the dessert station. It led to a floor drain. Yes, you heard that right, a drain. That little grate you barely notice on the kitchen floor became the hiding place for a rare strain of salmonella called Berta. Georgia usually only saw a few cases of this bug in an entire year. That summer, 23 confirmed illnesses, most of them in Cobb County, and at least one person with underlying conditions who never made it out alive. At first, investigators couldn't figure it out. Diners were getting sick from June all the way into late August, but no one dish was to blame. Not the meatloaf, not the mashed potatoes, not even the salad bar. The buffet even pulled a near-perfect inspection score, 100 out of 100, before reopening after a short closure. Looked sparkling clean on paper. Here's where it gets stranger. When inspectors dug deeper, they swabbed a floor drain and hit the jackpot. The outbreak strain was right there, nestled in a slimy biofilm that ordinary bleach barely touches. Picture it, a moist little underworld where bacteria thrive, protected by a sticky film, waiting for the next blast of water to set them free. And that's exactly how it spreads. Workers grab a hose, spray down the floor, and suddenly a fine mist rises. Tiny droplets, invisible to the eye, land on prep tables, utensils, maybe even food sitting nearby. One little splash and the bug in the drain becomes the bug in your lunch. Sound appetizing? The science backs this up. Food safety experts warn against high-pressure hoses around exposed food because aerosols from drains can travel farther than you think. And once salmonella finds its way into a wet zone like that, it doesn't go away easily. Biofilms can hold on for weeks, even months. That's why this outbreak kept dripping along instead of hitting all at once. Now, for younger, healthy folks, salmonella usually means a few days of fever, cramps, and running to the bathroom. Miserable, sure, but you'll probably recover. For seniors, it's another story. The CDC says older adults are far more likely to land in the hospital, and complications like bloodstream infections or severe dehydration can turn deadly. In fact, nearly half of lab-confirmed salmonella infections in seniors end with hospitalization. And don't let the clean look fool you. In Kennesaw, the buffet passed inspection with flying colors, even while the outbreak strain was sitting in that drain. That's the trap. Inspections are just snapshots. They can't always see what's lurking under the floor, waiting for the next spray of water to ride up into the kitchen. So the next time you walk into a buffet and the floor looks squeaky clean, remember this. Clean doesn't always mean safe. Sometimes the danger is hiding where you'd least expect it. Down a drain, waiting to find its way to your plate. Don't let your next buffet visit end in the ER. Stay ahead of hidden food dangers. Subscribe now and get the facts that could save your life. And the buffet after this one? Let's just say the hidden danger wasn't under the floor. It was out in plain sight and hundreds of people paid the price. Golden Corral in Casper, Wyoming had barely opened its doors in November of 2012 when it found itself at the center of a nightmare. 6 weeks into business, the shiny new buffet was already fueling one of the biggest norovirus outbreaks the state had ever seen. Over 300 people got sick. That's not a typo. 300. Customers, staff, even kids as young as 1, and grandparents pushing 90. 31 employees fell ill. And here's the kicker. Most of them kept working while they were vomiting or had diarrhea. 2/3 admitted it. And nearly 30 were back on the job within 48 hours of being sick, even though health authorities say that's the absolute minimum window when you're still contagious. The illness hit fast. Nausea, explosive vomiting, watery diarrhea, classic norovirus. One moment you felt fine, the next you were rushing to the bathroom. For most people, it passed in a couple of miserable days. But for older adults, it's not just a stomach bug. The dehydration can spiral into dizziness, low blood pressure, confusion, even hospitalization. That's exactly why norovirus kills close to 900 Americans every year, most of them over 65. Investigators noticed something. Almost every diner who got sick had eaten from the salad bar or dessert area. Cold, ready-to-eat items that look safe, even refreshing, but are the perfect vehicle for a virus that only needs a handful of particles to spread. Add in shared tongs, ladles, and that chocolate fountain in the corner, and you've basically created a virus playground. And then there were the incidents. Patrons and staff described vomiting episodes in dining areas and bathrooms. If you think that's just gross but contained, think again. Norovirus can actually aerosolize when someone throws up, sending microscopic droplets across tables, rails, and trays. You might not even notice the spill, but the virus could already be sitting on the handle of your spoon. Here's where it gets worse. Hand sanitizer, the little pump bottles we all rely on, mostly useless against norovirus. Soap and water is the only reliable defense. Yet in Casper, employees weren't wearing gloves consistently, utensils were reused without being swapped, and buffet pans were topped off without changing spoons. It's the little shortcuts that keep the line moving, but let the virus hitch a ride from one guest to the next. The outbreak curve tells the story. Wave after wave of illness through December until the restaurant finally closed for a deep clean. Inspectors zeroed in on restrooms and that chocolate fountain, disinfecting everything with bleach. Once sick workers were sent home and surfaces were scrubbed properly, the outbreak stopped cold. Think about it, a brand new buffet, not even 2 months old, already racking up hundreds of sick patrons. Fresh paint, new carpet, polished sneeze guards, and still it became ground zero for a statewide outbreak. That tells you it's not about shiny equipment. It's about people, procedures, and whether a business is willing to put safety above keeping the line moving. But viruses aren't the only thing waiting on the line. This next case proves bacteria can be quieter and deadlier. China Buffet in Alexandria, Minnesota looked like your average small-town all-you-can-eat stop. A few steam tables, some cold trays of fruit, a salad bar. Nothing flashy, nothing suspicious. But in February of 2020, 2 people, one a healthy teenager, the other a man in his 60s, walked out with more than a full stomach. They walked out carrying Listeria monocytogenes, a bacteria you don't just sleep off. Both ended up in the hospital. Now, Listeria isn't some throwaway bug. This is the one that terrifies doctors because it doesn't just give you diarrhea and send you home. It can cause blood infections, meningitis, even death, especially in people over 65. For seniors, the fatality rate isn't small. Think 20 to 30%. You eat a plate of fruit, and weeks later you're fighting for your life. And that weeks later part is the sneaky thing. Listeria can hide in your body for up to 2 months before you know you're sick. So by the time you start feeling feverish, shaky, or confused, you've long forgotten the buffet line where you scooped melon cubes onto your plate. Here's where it gets weird. Investigators discovered that a sample of mung bean sprouts taken from China buffet tested positive for Listeria, same strain as the two patients. Whole genome sequencing showed a perfect DNA match, zero allele difference for the science nerds, but neither of the sick diners remembered eating sprouts. One didn't even go near them. So how do you get the bacteria if you didn't eat the sprouts? Shared tongs, adjacent pans, condensation dripping off the sneeze guard. All it takes is one contaminated tray and a careless utensil swap, and suddenly the safe-cut melon or salad next to it is carrying the same germs. Think about the last time you saw someone grab the wrong spoon, realize it, and just plop it back. That's all it takes. And cold food doesn't save you here. Listeria is one of the rare bacteria that likes the cold. It doesn't die in the fridge. It just waits, slowly multiplying in those trays of cut fruit or deli salads until you scoop it onto your plate. That's why food safety rules demand cold food. Stay at 41 degrees Fahrenheit or below. But at buffets, how often is that tray actually measured? If you think this was just a one-off fluke, here's some déjà vu. That very same China buffet was tied to an E. coli outbreak almost 20 years earlier. Different bacteria, same location. It's a reminder that buffets aren't just battling one enemy. They're juggling a dozen ways food can turn dangerous, and history has a way of repeating itself. And remember, this wasn't just sloppy cleaning. State officials said the contamination may have started upstream, with products delivered to the restaurant, which means even a spotless kitchen can turn into ground zero if the sprouts, melons, or salad mix arrive already carrying bacteria. So when you're standing at that cold bar, spoon hovering over a tray of fruit that looks fresh and harmless, ask yourself, is it worth the gamble? One senior and one teenager had no idea they were playing with loaded dice. And the next buffet on our list? Let's just say it proves even when the kitchen follows the rules, the danger can start before the food ever arrives. You've probably never heard of Clostridium perfringens, but your gut definitely has. It's the most common foodborne bacteria most people have never named, and it thrives in the exact kind of dishes buffets love to serve. Roast meats, gravies, casseroles, trays of pasta, big hearty food cooked in big heavy pans. The trick is this. Cooking doesn't always kill it. This germ leaves behind heat-resistant spores, like little time bombs waiting for their moment. Once the food cools too slowly or sits in the warm but not hot zone for long enough, those spores wake up and multiply so fast it makes E. coli look lazy. The result? A full-blown gut disaster within 6 to 24 hours. Explosive diarrhea, cramps, and for seniors, dehydration bad enough to send you to the ER. Here's where it gets stranger. In Baltimore back in 2014, a professional conference catered a simple buffet lunch, chicken marsala. Sounds harmless, but more than 200 people ended up in hotel bathrooms instead of lecture halls. Investigators confirmed the culprit with lab tests. See perfringens enterotoxin in stool samples. Translation? The chicken had been prepped, held, and served in quantities too massive to stay safe. One meal, hundreds sick. And it isn't just giant conventions. A Connecticut office lunch in 2016 made headlines when nearly half the staff got nailed by the same bacteria. The caterer had stacked deep plastic containers of beef, filled to the brim, cooled slowly overnight, and then served warm the next day. It looked like normal workplace hospitality. Behind the scenes, reused gloves, a wooden chopping block that could hold onto germs, and meat sitting in the perfect danger zone for hours. Sound familiar yet? Lasagna at a Kansas wedding rehearsal did the same thing. So did barbecue at Florida senior centers. Even a Mother's Day roast buffet in England, where scientists proved your risk went up the later you sat down to eat. By 4 in the afternoon, the meat and gravy had been sitting long enough that your odds of getting sick were 5 times higher than people who ate at noon. 5 times. The CDC estimates that this one bug alone causes about 1 million illnesses every single year. Most recover in a day, but older adults pay the price faster. A night of fluid loss isn't just miserable, it can spiral into dizziness, kidney strain, or a hospital IV drip. And here's the detail you'll never see on the menu. Steam tables and sterno flames don't reheat food, they only hold it. So when you see a pan swapped in that looks warm enough, What you're really looking at could be the exact temperature this bacteria loves best. So the next time you're eyeing that shiny carving station or ladling gravy over mashed potatoes, pause. The danger isn't what you can see. It's what's been happening for hours before you walked in the door. But if you thought hidden spores were the problem, wait until you hear how one single spoon can turn an entire buffet into a germ relay race. Think about it. One set of tongs, one ladle, touched by 100 hands in a single lunch rush. A stranger coughs, scratches their nose, maybe skips the sink after the restroom, and then grabs the same handle you're about to use. That one moment is all it takes to turn a help-yourself station into a disease delivery system. Scientists have tested this in labs. They found germs leap from hands to utensils and back again at rates high enough to make you queasy. Sometimes 10%, sometimes over 50% of bacteria transfer in one quick grab. Now imagine that spoon plunging into the coleslaw, the pasta salad, the soup. Every scoop becomes a relay race for microbes. This isn't just theory. The history of outbreaks proves it. At a Sizzler in Milwaukee back in 2000, raw beef trimmings in the kitchen contaminated equipment, and those invisible hitchhikers ended up on fruit at the salad bar. 64 people got sick, 16 landed in the hospital, and one child never came home. A meat grinder in the prep room managed to turn fresh watermelon into a vehicle for E. coli. You'd never suspect it looking at the buffet line, but that's the point. It looks safe until it isn't. Or take the Royal Fork Buffet in Washington in 2001. An employee who'd just gotten back from overseas, no gloves, restocking romaine lettuce. He felt fine, but his hands still carried Shigella, an infection so potent that as few as 10 microscopic bugs can make you violently ill. Within days, diners were doubled over with cramps and bloody diarrhea. A salad bar, stocked by one person who wasn't careful, took down a room full of families. Even hospitals aren't immune. In Bethesda in the 1980s, over 100 staff and visitors got sick with severe Shigella dysentery traced back to the cafeteria's salad bar. Think about that. Medical professionals, surrounded by sterile equipment and infection control posters, still got caught by the most ordinary thing in the room, a tray of raw vegetables served with a shared spoon. And if you think, well, that's old news, remember Camden, South Carolina, 2015. One buffet, one undercooked turkey on the line, and over 300 sick, with one death. The bird itself was the culprit, but the buffet format amplified the damage. Every person who grabbed a slice got a dose. In a sit-down restaurant, the reach would have been smaller. At a buffet, the illness spread like wildfire. Here's the cruel trick. The germs we're talking about, Shigella, Salmonella, norovirus, don't need much. Norovirus can infect with fewer than 20 particles. That's the kind of number you can fit on the head of a pin. Seniors, especially, pay the steepest price. The CDC says nearly half of older adults who get one of these infections end up in the hospital. With Listeria, 1 out of 6 seniors die. So next time you're standing at the buffet, eyeing the ladle, ask yourself, whose fingerprints are you really picking up? Because the danger isn't in the food you see, it's in the spoon you share. And here's the dirty little secret about buffets. Sometimes the danger isn't what's on the plate, it's the temperature it's sitting at. The danger zone sounds like a bad action movie, but in food safety it's real and deadly. It's that in-between space, roughly 41 degrees Fahrenheit up to 135 degrees Fahrenheit, where bacteria throw a block party. Cold food creeping warmer, hot food sliding cooler. Once it drifts into that middle ground and stays there, microbes can multiply by the millions before you even grab a fork. Think about how buffets actually work. Those steam tables? They're designed to hold food, not reheat it. If staff toss a dense pan of stuffing or brisket on there, perfect for Clostridium perfringens, the cafeteria classic bacteria that turns big batches of meat and gravy into overnight gut bombs. Kansas City learned that the hard way at a dinner theater buffet. Guests thought they were digging into burnt ends, but investigators traced wave after wave of diarrhea back to one simple mistake. Food held warm, not hot enough. Now flip it. Cold bars. You see fruit trays sitting in shallow wells of ice, looking frosty on top, but the pans are overfilled. The bottoms never touch the ice, and inside those cut melons or deli salads, the temperature creeps up hour by hour. That's when Listeria gets comfortable. Unlike most bacteria, it doesn't mind the chill. It can grow slowly right in the fridge. So a pan that looks cold enough to be safe could actually be an incubator. That's how an unassuming small-town buffet in Minnesota ended up sending both a teenager and a man in his 60s to the hospital. The bacteria came from sprouts, but cross-contamination spread it to foods that seemed untouched. Seafood isn't safe from the zone either. In Indiana, back in the 90s, a hotel buffet served peel and eat shrimp that had been held just a little too warm for just a little too long. 20-plus diners spent the night sprinting to the bathroom thanks to C. perfringens toxin. Doesn't take days, just a few hours at the wrong temperature, and shrimp turns into a foodborne roulette wheel. And then there's staph. Not the gym kind, but Staphylococcus aureus. This one rides in on human hands. If it lands on sliced ham or turkey that's kept warm, but not truly hot, it cranks out a toxin that laughs at reheating. By the time Easter brunch ended at a Kentucky buffet in 2008, more than 100 people were violently sick, and one older guest reportedly didn't survive. Here's the kicker. Food doesn't even have to taste spoiled. The danger zone doesn't come with alarms or warning lights. A dish can look fine, smell fine, and still be crawling with bacteria. Seniors pay the steepest price, because for them, what's a 24-hour bug in a teenager can mean dehydration, hospitalization, or worse. So next time you walk past a buffet tray that looks merely warm instead of steaming, or a cold bar that feels more like room temp with a breeze, remember this: the real hazard isn't the food itself, it's the clock. And if you thought lukewarm shrimp was risky, wait until you hear about the healthy option that might be even deadlier. Buffet salads are sold as the guilt-free zone. Leafy greens, fresh fruit, maybe a scoop of coleslaw. It feels lighter, safer, even virtuous compared to fried chicken or mac and cheese. But here's the twist. Salad bars are one of the most dangerous corners of any buffet. Why? Because there's no kill step. Meat at least gets cooked, zapped hot enough to wipe out most bacteria. Salad? It comes raw. Ready to eat means whatever germs hit it on the farm, in the kitchen, or on the line end up in your body exactly as they are. For seniors, that gamble can be brutal. Take Cheyenne, Wyoming 2010. A plate of harmless buffet food turned into 5 years of hell for Christopher Gage. Salmonella didn't just give him diarrhea, it pushed him into sepsis, kidney failure, and permanent disability. The judge's ruling was clear. The Old Country buffet meal left him so sick he could barely hold down water years later. That's the hidden cost of a salad bar slip-up, and it's not an isolated story. California, 2007, Souplantation, the all-you-can-eat salad buffet chain. 14 confirmed E. coli 0157 cases, all tied to that single location. One victim? A 72-year-old woman who ended up on dialysis. Investigators couldn't even pin it on one dish. Was it spinach, melon, potato salad? That's the problem. When dozens of uncovered trays sit shoulder to shoulder, touched by the same tongs and ladles, any one of them can become the domino that topples the rest. Sometimes the contamination doesn't even come from the lettuce itself. Wisconsin, 2000, Sizzler. Raw beef juice dripped onto fruit prep. That watermelon ended up on the salad bar, looking bright and fresh. Diners had no clue. 49 people sick, 1 child dead, all because meat bacteria hit fruit no one thinks to question. It's the kind of cross-contamination you'd never imagine until it's too late. Even when the kitchen is spotless, time and temperature are merciless. Cold pans that only look cold from the top can be creeping into the danger zone, 41 to 135 degrees fan heat, where bacteria multiply like crazy. Listeria doesn't just survive the fridge, it thrives in it. That's why deli salads and cut fruit become riskier the longer they sit. Seniors pay the price with bloodstream infections and, in some cases, death. And then there's the human factor. Shared tongs. Ill workers wearing gloves they never change. A sneeze over the bar that no one notices. Norovirus is the #1 outbreak agent in restaurants, and buffets give it the perfect playground. Soap and water knock it down. Hand sanitizer barely makes a dent. Yet buffet lines run on sanitizer pumps and wishful thinking. For seniors, the danger isn't just food poisoning, it's kidneys shutting down. It's sepsis, it's dialysis, it's a so-called healthy plate, rewriting the rest of your life. So the next time you see a long salad bar gleaming under fluorescent lights, remember, it's not a health choice, it's a gamble. And if that unsettled you, wait until you see what happens when the dessert bar becomes the cross-contamination highway nobody talks about. And if you thought the salad bar was risky, wait until you see what happens when you become the server. Buffets look like freedom. Grab what you want, when you want. But the truth is, self-serve chaos is a germ's dream playground. Think about it. 100 strangers touching the same tongs, ladles, and tray handles in the space of an hour. One sick person, one careless hand, and suddenly everyone after them is scooping up a little extra they didn't order. Here's the kicker. Viruses like norovirus don't need much. About 18 particles. That's microscopic. A single ill worker or diner with dirty hands can turn a shared spoon into a launch pad. Science labs have shown the transfer is ridiculously efficient, even when gloves are used badly. And once it's on the utensil, it doesn't stay there. It moves into the potato salad, the dressing, the melon cubes. That's how hundreds get sick off a single point of contact. Temperature makes it worse. Hot food that dips under 135 degrees fan heat, or cold food that creeps above 41 degrees fan heat, slides into the danger zone. That's where bacteria like Clostridium perfringens, nicknamed the cafeteria germ, explode in numbers. You can't taste it, can't see it, but your body will definitely feel it 12 hours later. That Baltimore conference in 2014, over 200 attendees went down after chicken marsala sat lukewarm on the buffet. Steam tables don't reheat, they just hold. So once the food cools, the germs sprint ahead. And the time on the line rule is no safer. By law, buffets can leave food out for up to 4 hours without strict temperature control, 6 if it never rises above 70 degrees fan heat. After that, it's trash. But to the customer's eye, that tray of pasta looks brand new. No clock ticking, no warning sign, just food that might be at the tail end of its safe window. Cross-contamination is the sneakiest piece. The Sizzler outbreak in Wisconsin, 2000, proves it. Raw beef juice slipped onto watermelon. Bright, fresh fruit that should have been harmless ended up killing a child and sickening dozens. The salad bar, what most people see as the healthy option, was the actual danger zone, all because knives and cutting boards weren't kept separate. And if you're picturing a sneeze guard saving you, think again. Kids can duck under them. Adults lean too close. And when someone vomits near the line, yes, it happens, norovirus doesn't politely stay in a puddle. It goes airborne. Microscopic droplets settle across counters, trays, and handles. Soap and water can kill it, but your trusty pump of sanitizer? Useless. For older adults, these aren't just bad stomach bugs. Dehydration hits faster. Kidneys struggle. Confusion sets in. Hospital stays become more likely. The same germs a teenager might shake off in a day can send a grandparent to the ER. So next time you're at a buffet, watch the line. See those tongs being touched by 10 people in 5 minutes? Notice that half-empty pan looking dry around the edges? That's not just sloppy service. It's a perfect storm for an outbreak. Freedom to choose is great, until the choice is between dinner and the ER. At buffets, that line is thinner than you think. Your next buffet plate could be hiding more than food. It could be hiding a trip to the hospital. Don't take chances. Hit subscribe right now so you never miss these life-saving warnings. One click today could protect your health or even your life tomorrow.